Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another one of our podcast episodes from the Three Wise Potatoes. And we have, once again, our valued members, Dean and Prush. How are both of you this evening?
Hello.
Hello. I'm good. Just
Yeah, getting
tired,
there.
but yeah, good.
It's been a challenging couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus, I've been feeling a bit of an energy drain as well, just on my side. So yeah, I can relate. I can relate to that.
Do you know where it's coming from?
Um, just a lot going on right now that's
Yeah.
just requiring my attention, and so just
Yeah,
being active
sounds
in
about
these
right.
different areas, it's just
Yeah.
physically just draining. I think, and mentally as well. There's some challenging tasks that needed to be done, and yeah, just from that perspective, physical and a bit of mental drain is what I've been
Yeah.
experiencing.
And then what do
Okay.
you do to counteract it?
In the past, I think we mentioned on some of the podcasts as well. I think you also mentioned this, Coach, is that you do more of the things that you really enjoy doing, just to rebuild that energy. And I know Dean mentioned as well. He does this quite well. Where he when he wants to recoup his energy, just do a lot more things that you really enjoy doing. Just put yourself in a bit more relaxed state as well. Because at one point, my mind was really busy. As I mentioned, there was mentally challenging tasks, and my mind was really busy. And so I decided to just sit still for a set period of time before I just went off and do what I love doing. And as I've said before, I love shopping, and one of the things that I do when I just want to calm myself or put myself in a better state is go out shopping.
Nice.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We need to discuss what was shopped after this.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I need new clothes.
Yeah, I mean, the change of season is coming about, so we'll definitely look at what's in for the new season, so we can go shopping, Dean, and Prush if you're keen as well.
Viewers, I make a solemn commitment. I will go shopping with Captain.
Yeah.
I'll decide on that after I look at my bank account code.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, the things.
You do have some pretty big life events coming up that you need to save for, so
Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, and if you look at the economies globally, things are taking a massive hit everywhere.
Deep caca.
So it's not going to be an easy year financially, I guess, for a lot of people as well.
Mm-mm.
It's actually getting quite hectic now.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
just like
I
between the petrol price and food and just general things.
think
My
even
Discovery contributions went up. My levies went up. Everything went up.
general
It's like,
services are getting a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's I can only imagine what others are going through as well. Yeah, tighten those belts, people. Tighten those belts.
Just after we say we're gonna go shopping. Slightly contradictory, but tighten those belts is definitely the better advice, people. Definitely. I need new clothes because certain things are starting to have holes in them. So can't go to the office looking like a dumpster fire.
It depends on what has holes, Dean. Just depends on what has holes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
If it's in your shoe, it's fine.
Oh no, man.
If no one can see it, it's okay.
Oh, damn.
That's the rule of thumb, people. If people can't see the hole, it's fine.
No. Dress code is coming up, so
Is it?
yeah, we're gonna change.
I feel
that.
like that needs to be a video cast.
There will be a video cast. Codes, dress code. Anyway, we'll discuss codes, dress codes some other time. This evening's topic, this is titled "My Life, My Time." The one thing we have is time. It's our most valuable commodity. Yet so many of us are poor at managing it and using it to our gain. So this is the topic for this evening: time in general, and we'll touch on some philosophical topics on time later on. But right now, we're just going to deal with I guess the uses of it, how to use it, how to use it well, and things like that initially. So I'd like to firstly ask, how do you both see time? No, don't give me simple, I see it through a watch. No, no. Um, what is
I
time to
see it
you?
as a fabric inextricably connected to space.
What is time to you?
Um, Time is such a hard question to answer from a
Yeah, are you looking
non-plastic
for
point of
like
view.
an existential? Yeah, like what
So
kind of
I'm not
answer are you
really
looking
looking
for?
for existential at this point. We can answer that
Okay.
at a later time. As I
So,
said, there's a
in,
philosophical one later on.
in
Yeah.
some portions of my day, time is money, right?
Mm.
And in some portions of my day, time is freedom. And in some portions of my day, time is rest and relaxation. I think that's the best way I can put it.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I could say I would agree, and I do. But I would summarize it by just saying time is wealth because
Yes.
it's something that you can trade, but it's something
Well
that
said.
allows you to feel something.
Yeah.
When you talk, as you introduced this, like the first thought that came to mind when you said it's, so many, it's our greatest resource and yet we manage it so poorly. If you look at people that have very recently come into wealth, they tend to waste and squander that wealth very, very easily and
Mm.
on trivial things,
Yes.
because it makes you feel powerful. And I wonder sometimes if we waste time because it's the one thing everybody has that we can all waste, and it's a way for all of us to feel a little bit wealthy, even if, that's not the reality of things. And the irony is, the wealthiest people in the world are very stingy and frugal with their time because they understand that it allows for so many other things.
Yeah.
Agreed. I like the way you put that. So how do either of you manage that time then? Because Guj, I know you mentioned there's a lot of different things that you do with the time. There's like rest, relaxation, there's work, and then other areas. How do you manage your time
Yeah.
doing
So
each of those
lately,
things?
lately, this is actually a good time to talk about. Lately, I've been struggling with this time concept
God,
because
me too.
I have so many hours in the day, like you said, but also with pressures and recently moved jobs and stuff like that. It's you have to kind of reframe it, but also with the new year and the change in what my plans are for the year and stuff like that, you you kind of have to reassess what's important and then change the way you do stuff so that you focus on the important things for that year. Um, and for me, it's one of those things that I've been struggling to hone down on how many hours a day I have, and then how many hours a day I can utilize to do different things, right? And you want to try and put in all the types of things that you could possibly fit in, for example, in a week. But the challenge comes in like I have a lot of stuff that I want to do and not enough time to do it. So you have to like start compartmentalizing each section of hours within the day to try and make sure you finish everything. And it becomes quite a challenge, um, especially when you have a lot of stuff that you want to do with your time. And for me, I try to what I need to actually start with, what I struggled with at the beginning of this year so far, and what I did really well last year was I made lists of the things that I'd want to do and focus on for like that day, that week, and stuff like that. And I need to get back to that, but I found that works really well when you pre-plan what you want to do for a week. Not specifically every hour of the day, but like pre-plan the major items for the week and give time within the week to do them. I find that um, works for me quite well. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's a pretty good answer.
I mean, you kind of mentioned the lists thing that you do,
Yeah.
which has worked for you in the past, and you just kind of need to get back into that.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a simple way for anyone to get involved or get started in managing time is to time box, right? We all hear these things with it, at work, in the work environment especially. If you have multiple
Yeah.
tasks, they advise you to time box, so that block out a certain amount of time in the day and work on task A, and then when that time box expires, then you switch to task B and task C likewise.
Yeah.
Um, so it's pretty much building a structure for your day. And as I mentioned, one of the things that I do in the morning is I tell myself there are like 5 things that I'd want to achieve for that day. It doesn't have to. I'm not hard about myself on whether I achieve those 5 things, but I set my day up such that I want to achieve these 5 things within the 24-hour space of time that I have. And I set myself up for success the previous night by planning how I'm going to execute on those 5 things and things like that. So
Okay.
that's me. Like, there's a lot of planning that goes into my days these days. Dean, how do you manage your time?
I haven't been doing it very well recently, but when I have done it successfully, it was essentially two things that you both have touched on in different ways. It's prioritizing things that need to happen, and then putting in boundaries. So one boundary could be time boxing, but the other boundary could be on how much time you're willing to give to certain things, certain people, and what you allow to infringe on the time. So sure, there will always be emergencies and things like that, but sometimes, like, work is a very good example where you get pulled into meetings that you probably shouldn't be in or you don't need to be in, but people, find you reliable for whatever reason and they need you in there and they just say, I need you, it's important, but it's actually not important. It's important to them, it's not really important to you. But you're there as a safety net and you don't necessarily need that. It's a case of putting in the boundaries, going, okay, well, I'm going to take a hard line on this because I can't be in your meeting because I have other meetings of my own to prepare for and I have assigned time for these tasks. And if I don't do my own tasks, then I'm going to, fall short in my duties. And, that's very similar in life as well. Like, you gotta choose who you give your time to. As much as you would want to give all of your friends all of your time, that's not really feasible. And it sounds really selfish to say, well, only certain friends are going to get certain time from me. But unfortunately, we don't have unlimited time. We have finite amounts of time. And you have to be selective and prioritize who that time goes to and have those boundaries in place. And you have to hold yourself accountable more than anything else for those boundaries because no one else will.
How do you manage the energy control and those things? So when you have to manage a time block, and you find that there's sometimes an overlap, or you run out of energy or steam or whatever it is. How do you ensure that you still work in your time spaces? I don't know if you understand the question.
I think I do. Let me give you an answer and tell me if I get it right. So when I'm doing this well, because right now, like I said, I'm not doing this particularly well, but when I'm doing it well, it's really about that first sort of, I'd say 2 to 3 hours of the day. Set tasks that you can knock out in those 2 to 3 hours, and it's a momentum game. Yash talked about this in a much earlier podcast, but it's a momentum game. You get that momentum swinging in your favor and you have energy to club the day. And just get the big wins out early.
Okay.
And if you do that, then things tend to work out better. You do tend, like, momentum, it's an easy thing to maintain. It's a hard thing to start. So pick things that you can club in the first 2 to 3 hours of that day.
Okay. I'll think about it.
I think also, just to expand on that, people are most productive during the following hours, 9 to 11 during the day.
Really?
Yeah, you're most productive during that time, and thereafter it starts declining. You get diminishing returns for more effort you put in. But one of the things that I don't do early in the mornings is touch emails, touch any of those things, because I find that it kind of detracts from the plan that I had for the day as well. Because when you do get distracted by side quests, as I'm going to call them, by opening your emails and doing other things, your energy is going in that area. Your focus is going into that area, and you're going to have less time doing what you actually planned out to do for that day. So I don't engage during these core hours, as I mentioned, 9 to 11. I don't engage with anyone during those times, and I make sure that my most productive or the task that I want to achieve the most is in that time space. And outside of that time space, then and only then will I engage with anyone else. So I really just make it a rule for myself in the mornings to not distract myself, but only focus on the core tasks during these core hours that I call them.
Two things I'd like to touch on there. One, look, people, we know that not everyone will have the luxury of saying no between 9 and 11. Like, leave me alone to let me do my work. If you do, though, it is a fantastic thing, right? Yeah, like unfortunately, I get bothered a lot between 9 and 12. So my core productivity sits between 7 and 9.
At night? At night?
No, in the morning I get to the office because like traffic is a nightmare at the moment. So the only way to actually not hate yourself before you get to work and hate life is to just beat the traffic, get there early. And the beautiful thing is that while everyone else is sitting in traffic, you get left alone, and the office is quiet, it's peaceful. Got my coffee there, it's lovely. The second thing I want to touch on is you're 100% right in don't give your energy to things like emails and messages. For two reasons. One, email is for me a very admin heavy thing, and it's not something I enjoy. I do it because I have to, not because I want to. The second thing is that email has such a variety in it. You can get good emails, you can get bad emails. Some emails can take you into a short side quest, and other emails can take you into a long side quest. It's a very unpredictable thing, especially if you're in a position where you get lots of emails. So the types of tasks I schedule are generally working tasks that sit within my core functionality. So as a strategist, I will do strategy work in that 2 hours. I will do workshop planning. I will do an analysis. Things like that will take a block of time. And if I'm left alone, I can knock it out pretty quickly. But if I'm not left alone, then it kind of takes forever. Like if I had to try and start that work after 12, it would maybe take like 4 hours because I keep getting interrupted. Whereas I can knock it out in an hour to 90 minutes in most cases early in the morning because I'm left alone. And that kind of work, which sits in the kind of field where it's in the things that I really enjoy doing, right? Strategy, creative work, planning, analysis, all of that kind of stuff, that there's energy giving work rather than energy taking work. And you set the tasks that are energy giving work that stimulate you. And then the energy taking work, I don't know when you want to fit that in, like, admin and timesheets and emails and things like that. But plop that at the end of the day with whatever remaining energy you have left.
Yeah, I like the ideas or the way you guys do things, but like you said, not everyone has that sort of environment.
Yeah,
And
like you have to try and figure out how to work it into yours.
I work in an environment that is solely people based.
I mean, your position now requires consistent engagement.
But even my previous position, to be honest with you, it was very people based. So you're waiting for things, you're giving things, you're doing things, but you're delivering, right? And for me, I definitely agree with the whole. I agree to an extent with the whole. I'm not looking at emails between this period and this period. A lot of people have meetings throughout the whole day, right? So time to focus on things that you need to do are always either during that period, meetings or whatever, or it's after hours, right? And that becomes a really big challenge. And I think in those environments, because I don't know if you guys have ever sat in those environments where you have to consistently sit in meetings throughout the whole day.
It's currently a problem, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to do that for the last 4 or 5 years, right? So it wasn't like it's not currently a problem. It's a consistent problem for 4 or 5 years, and it's not like if you have a week where you have like 3 days with only 3 meetings a day, then it's a blessing, right? So the challenge that comes in is when we talk about time is you have to be very strict with how you deal with things. But you also have to learn how to be hyper-focused to the point of, can I do multiple tasks at once and focus on a couple of things while I'm doing something else? But also you have to be very strict with how much time you give to every item that you're working on, Now, all of us are talking specifically about work at this point, but it sort of works with everything in your life. Um, and there's a lot of distractions, but you need to
Yeah.
focus on what the core deliverables are in every aspect of life, right? And
Yeah.
then, like you say, like Code said, if you have 5 things in the day, make sure that those are your core deliverables, right? And then if there's superfluous or extra stuff that you can meet, then you do that. But I think a lot of the world actually faces the multiple meetings, working while in meetings, delivering things at the same time, dealing with people and delivering at the same time. A lot of the world actually sees that right now because of this whole work from home story. Um,
Well, I saw a meme that said meetings are the new pandemic.
honestly, true.
And I was like, you know what? They're not wrong.
Yeah, I
Like, I
think
can't argue.
it's because managers just like because you're working from home, they feel that they don't keep in touch with you, they don't know what you're doing, and it becomes a problem. So it's always one of those things where you have to learn how to really compartmentalize your time and deliver, but also meet all to be honest with you, talking about doing admin and stuff, I think meetings nowadays are more admin than timesheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people have meetings for meeting's sake, and it's not
Yeah.
concise to the point. It doesn't, as Dean mentioned as well, it's not necessarily your area or you need to be involved 100% of the time, but you're available. So I'm just going to pull in as many people as possible into this whole thing.
It's risk mitigation.
Yeah.
It's like, but we had a meeting about it. It's like, well,
Exactly.
okay, but it doesn't change anything. Nothing was actioned. So,
But they never heard of emails. I mean, your meeting can be an email too, you know.
yeah, that's true.
I have this
But
habit.
that doesn't help because people like Code don't read the emails from Nigel.
Yeah, I have this habit of not accepting meetings, any meeting, any and every meeting. So plausible deniability that
Yeah.
I wasn't in a meeting. Well, I didn't accept it, so I don't need to be there.
Yeah.
Yasha has a script running. Is auto decline
Yeah,
any
it's
meeting
a
request.
bad habit. But sometimes I do join
Decline,
those
decline.
meetings anyway, the ones I really want to join. So I pick and choose based on my time. So there's two things I want to ask here. I'm going to ask this one first, and Prash mentioned it just on the multitasking stuff. So there's a portion of this where your ability to do many tasks, your ability to handle multiple situations comes into play. So how do you ensure that you're using your abilities and yourself, I guess, to your fullest potential? With the time that you have. So that's the first question, and there's a second one after that. But let's deal with that one first, because it's based on abilities and using them wisely during the time that you have.
You have to be conscious. Like, you have to consciously examine whether or not you are, in fact, using yourself to your best of your abilities. Because a lot of the time, when I'm not, using myself to the best of my abilities, is because I'm behaving in an unconscious fashion. And then I'll realize it at some point, and I'll be like, wow, I was being stupid. And then I'll dial it back and I'll go back to the processes that I had in place. But for me, the problem comes in when I'm not behaving in a conscious manner.
Do you deal with it the same way, Prash? So you're conscious that
So
I have X, Y, Z,
yeah,
and I need to.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I feel like Dean hit the nail on the head there. You have to consistently know what it is that you're doing, but also I also feel like the consciousness helps with you being able to switch your frame of mind continuously. Because, say, for example, just use a random example. You're in a meeting and you're working on a report at the same time, but you're listening to something while it's happening. Your frame of mind is in two places. And the sad reality is that it's really bad to do that because you're not focusing fully on two things. But invariably, sometimes you have to do that, and you end up either dropping the ball in one area or you're not focusing fully to deliver an answer in another area. But what I found is if you can change your frame of mind very quickly, it helps. But like Dean said, it requires consciousness. You have to be aware of what's going on in the scenarios. And I've sort of been um, not practicing it for a very long time, but I think it started when I was like studying, and I could never study in silence. I
Mm,
always required some noise happening in the background,
mm,
and while I was doing my degrees and stuff, I'd always have series on in the background.
mm,
So while I was writing reports and doing designs and whatever it was, there was always some consistent chatter in the background that I found that um, it was a bit soothing. I don't know if that makes sense, but I found that from there I could really focus on more than one thing at once. Um, Maybe one thing was too easy, or one thing was comforting, but
mm.
it definitely requires a lot of consciousness, awareness, and a little bit of luck. Because if someone's talking to you and you're not paying attention, then it's bad luck.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
problems.
I
But
definitely
yeah,
agree with that.
I do the same thing.
Okay, so I want to go back to like very early on when Dean mentioned about saying no to people and just focusing on what he needs to do for himself.
Mm.
This question that I wanted to ask: do we ever consider the cost um, in terms of time and doing something or extra tasks and things like that?
Yeah, because no matter what you do, the minute you have a finite resource, it
Mm.
becomes a question of opportunity cost.
Yeah,
Mm.
If you do something, you have to give up something else.
yeah,
So you have to see that, and whether you see it that way or not, at some level, you would have had to forego something in order to do something else, and it
Yeah,
would have crossed your mind at some point.
yeah,
and then
for sure.
the follow up that I have to that is: should we consider the cost of time with everything in our lives? Should we protect our time?
100%
I
agree.
I think so.
Protect your time, definitely.
Mm. Mm.
The
It comes
bulk of
back
your
to
time
what?
should be
Yeah.
the
Sorry.
bulk of your time should be reserved for the people that mean the most to you.
Mm,
Um, I mean, 8 hours is going to go to your job if you're employed.
mm,
If you're an entrepreneur, then probably more. But that's a different kind of game because you're doing that in the short term so that long term you can spend more time. Money is a
Mm.
tool to buy time. Time is not a tool to buy money. And I think we kind of get that wrong a
Mm.
lot of the time.
yes.
Pun intended. um,
Mm.
but in the reality of it is that you have to reserve time for the things that matter, and putting food on the table absolutely matters. That's why 8 hours goes to your day job.
Mm,
But
Mm.
you also have to be more careful with the time that's not at work, because you can assign that 8 hours and you can say, sure, that's going to work, but what about the other 16? Put it towards rest and recuperation, but how much of it is going towards developing yourself? How much is it going towards managing your family and enjoying your family and enjoying the things that really matter to you?
I think I have
Yeah.
a third follow up to that one as well. So you mentioned you touched on family life and life outside of work. So once you're away from your job, does your time management strategies, does your time management style change? Does time management exist outside of work?
If anything, I think it gets better. Because I'm a lot more stingy with my social time, because with work, someone's paying me to be there. With my social time, that's not my cost. I mean, in both cases, they're at my cost, right? However, my social time,
Mm.
the second I feel like I'm depleted, I then start looking for my exit. Or if I feel like I'm unhappy in a scenario, then I'll leave very quickly.
Mm,
Because then it's a waste of my time, and it's not just a waste of my time; it's a poor use of my time, and it's taking more than it's giving, and it's just really just a horrible transaction.
does it change for you,
I,
Prash?
I agree fully. You have to, I think, like Dean says, uh, with us, I think especially with us, it's very different because we know what's important to us.
That's a
And
good point, though.
yeah, so we focus on the things that are extremely important to us. So I found that there's a lot of things that I still do, like self development, all of those things. But um, I'm focusing a lot on the small things that bring me a lot of joy, right? And yes, it's not always the greatest things because you end up in a cycle, and you end up not focusing on things like maybe doing a little bit of self development, which is difficult, or maybe um, not. I'll give you an example. There's some stuff that I need to do around the house that I still haven't done in a while because I've been not that I've been ignoring it. It's just that I've been doing other things that I enjoy, um, and it brings me freedom, joy, happiness, all of those things. But um, the other things that I need to do that are not necessarily so important, but it's because I know, and like you say, be very ruthless with your time because you know what's important to you and what's not important to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it stems from. But yeah, I think you you kind of have to also look at your time and say, am I using my free time the best way I can, right? And I can tell you now, I'm not. But I keep reminding myself of the same thing every day, but not making too much progress. But that question code is asking as well. You have to know what's important to you before you can utilize your free time or your non-working time the best way you want, right? And that I think is important.
Agreed.
Definitely agree with that. So one of the reasons why I asked the questions about work and home and balance and things like that. I mean, do people often notice that they're living autonomously? Taking control of your life, taking control of your time, excuse me, is one step toward controlling your life. So do they realize that they're going through life autonomously when they're just droning, waking up, going to work, coming home, and rinse, repeat, that sort of thing? Do people think they're do people realize they're doing that?
That comes from people only realize that when they get frustrated.
I don't even know if they realize it at that point. I think some people just get frustrated and get angry and develop unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Most people will come home and be like, "Oh my god, like I'm tired from work, whatever. Like I could be doing other things. I could be doing this. I could be doing that," and automatically they realize innately that they're not living their best life, doing things that they want to do. But the problem is that they'll never take stepping stones to creating that freedom for themselves, or focusing on the important things because they'll stress about what's happening the next day, or they won't focus on the time that they have. And I definitely think that people realize that they're not utilizing their time to the best of their abilities. They just don't do anything about it.
I think that as you say, Prash, from what you just mentioned, ultimately people need to know what they kind of want out of their time first, in order to plan,
That's a good point.
in order to set yourself up to win, in order to achieve the things that you want to achieve. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, people aren't on that path yet. Like Dean mentioned, you come home, you're frustrated from all the stuff that you've been through for that day, and you just don't know where you're going, as well. So, I mean, to every one of the listeners out there, I'd like to ask all of you, ultimately, what do you really want out of your time? I think that's a question that you all need to ask yourselves. There's us three here, as Prash and Dean mentioned, is like we kind of know what we want out of our time, but is that something that you really know? Is that something that you've really asked yourself? And if you haven't, that's okay. You can start now. So one of the next things one of the next questions alludes to what Prash really early on mentioned. Most people say that they don't have the time, but how do we actually go about changing that narrative now? And I know people have hard lives, they have hard days and things like that, but is there more that we can do in order to change that frame of mind that we don't have enough time to do something?
I think it's okay to say that you don't have enough time to do something when that something is not a priority or going to add value. Then it's perfectly okay to say I don't have the time to do that. Because I mean, if something is not going to be valuable to me, then I will say I don't have the time for that, because it's just not worth the investment. But in other areas where something is going to be valuable, so spending time with your family, your loved ones, your partner, developing yourself, enriching your wealth, those kinds of things. If you're saying you don't have time for that, that's a problem. And going back to the two things I said before, you got to prioritize and put in boundaries. Because I'm pretty sure if you don't have time to develop yourself, you're probably spending time in something you shouldn't be spending it in, or wasting more time on something than you should be. And in that case, prioritize your self-development and time box the things that don't add value to your life that you seem to be getting pulled into, and slowly manage that going forward.
Yeah, I agree. The only circumstance that I could think of that wouldn't be exactly as Dean is saying is, and I fall prey to exactly what he. I don't time box well sometimes. I've been struggling this year because I don't know. There's been a lot of changes, etc., etc. But there's like only one or two cases where I could think of that people actually aren't time boxing. It's like if someone's working 3 jobs in a day or whatever it is, but it's a really rare case, you know.
Yeah, we have to understand, like, some people's lives are considerably harder than ours.
Yes, no,
You
for
know,
sure.
like if
And
you're a
we
single parent,
we
for
are
example, that's
we are
that's a
privileged.
full-time job and a full-time job. It's
Yeah, for sure. We are definitely privileged, but I also think that, like Dean says, a lot of people, and a lot of people, like the bulk of people, just don't time box well, and I fall prey to it quite a lot.
or
I
set
could
boundaries.
definitely tell myself that there's maybe 3 or 4 hours in a day where I'm just um, doing like part arsing around or not doing anything important or whatever it is. But not that it's not important, but I mean, like, in terms of my future plans and future growth, I'm foregoing some of that for other pleasures at the time that I'm um, spending, you know. But you also gotta be a little bit um, not so hard on yourself. Um, and when it's
Yeah.
time to work, you work. But when it's time to play, you play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like we're saying, you have to, every 24 hours, every second of that day, you have to be productive towards something. It's not that we're saying that. We understand you do need downtime. You do need to kind of give your body rest. Otherwise, you overexert yourself, you strain yourself, you you end up in the hospital and things like that. So it's not like we're saying you must account for every second, and every second must account to like some sort of goal, some sort of improvement, some sort of achievement. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying, when you're taking a view on your life, you know, what are the things that you're doing in your day to actually achieve that? So it doesn't have to be every second of day, every minute, or every hour, or things like that. So that's what we're trying to get at.
Yeah.
I think that sets up my next question quite well as well. So our view on time with respect to goals, achievements, what we want to do in our lives, do we take a short-sighted view or do we take a long-sighted view? By that I mean, do we give ourselves a very short time limit, or do we give ourselves, in terms of the long-sighted view, do we give ourselves like this really long timeline to achieve something? So now why I asked that question is, we obviously don't know how much time we actually have left on this earth to kind of do the things that we want to do.
That's a very clever question.
Very cute.
That's very sneaky.
But so what's your take on that? Like, what do we do with that? Or should we always just live in the moment? Like, just throw that one in there as well.
This guy's asking hard questions.
You need both, Code.
Say again?
You need both.
Yeah.
You need to teach yourself. Like, I think we've all learned that you can work well, right? And you can look into the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then have plans and stuff, and then break them down and then work back to them and then provide the time for those plans. But also, you need to not live in the moment. I don't know if that makes sense. You have to enjoy what you're doing. Because if you're not enjoying what you're doing for the future plans, then
Why are you even
you're
doing
working to an end. Yeah, I know. You can spend 20 years working for 2 years worth of pleasure.
Yeah, I think too the whole working to an end, that's quite a, I don't know, that line hits really hard for me because you could be working to an end that you may never see. You could have a 10-year plan and you might not live the next 2 years. COVID was a very stark reminder of that. I mean, we've all seen people we know fall victim to it, people our age even, that unfortunately didn't make it through that. And they had plans. They had a lot of plans. So I think, like in everything in life, you have to have balance. So there's got to be stuff in the short term that you want to achieve and want to enjoy, and there's got to be stuff in the long term that you want to achieve and want to enjoy. You plan for a long life, and actually, you hope for a long life, but you also plan for the short term as well. So you kind of have to balance out both. Because if you don't do the long term stuff, you're going to wake up 10 years from now and like, cool, I've been living in the moment and stuff, but what have I actually got for myself? I mean, I'm happy right now, but I look around me and like the whole world has progressed and I'm really not. But conversely, if you don't live in the moment, then you just end up running yourself into the ground and you're not going to be able to actually make it in the long run. So it's really just, for me, it's about balance. It's about setting up things that you can, it's really about taking a long-term objective, breaking it up into short-term tasks and achieving those, but in a manner that helps you enjoy life.
Balance.
Sounds simple. It's really not. It's really not simple. But if you spend the appropriate amount of time on it, then it's doable.
I'd agree. I
Also,
like the way.
try to aim to spend like 5% planning and 95% doing.
Yeah. One of our clients, he's the chief marketing officer at a well-known bank, said that ideas versus implementation. Ideas are very easy to come by. Implementation is really hard to come by. And an amazing idea with mediocre implementation will always lose to a mediocre idea with amazing implementation. So to that point, it's more just a case of, yes, plan 100%, but don't plan to the point where you can't even implement, or you don't have enough time to implement, or implementation is not even realistic. Spend some time, but plan, be realistic, but then make it something that you can deliver on.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, people plan and then fail to deliver, like you're saying. Plan to the nth degree, but execute on nothing.
Yeah.
The problem with theory is that you never know you never know what the reality of it is going to be if you just sit in theory the whole time. The more you execute, the more you learn what to plan.
100%. That's why
that might actually be the smartest thing I've ever said.
Yes. No, you said some really smart thing. That's not lie.
Oh, man.
But this one here, Lord, it's so true.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So, 100%.
So, if both of you had nothing realistically to do, you had no work, nothing else to kind of worry about ever in your life, what would you do with your time?
Find something to worry about.
Say again? Oh, find something to worry about.
Find something to worry about.
Yeah, I do nothing.
I don't know. Like I'm an absurdly ambitious person, probably to my own detriment. So I really would. I would find something to worry about. I would find something that makes me really excited and gets me going, and I'd find something that brings me joy, and I would go and do that. And ultimately, those things that you live in the extremes, right? Like, not you, like I do. When I say you, I mean you, the viewers. Some people do, some people don't. I enjoy the extremes, the highs and the lows, the swings and the dips and all that kind of stuff. So the things that really bring me joy also bring me a lot of worry as well. Because I put a lot of responsibility on myself.
But look at what you said. You said I would find something I enjoy doing, right? And then I'd set whatever else up I'm doing to end up in that state, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So you would focus on only the things that you enjoy, and I think that's the code. That's the questions code's getting to. Find out what it is that you really want to do, right? And then gear your time for that, right? And work all the other things that you have in your space to deliver on that.
I agree, but there's a caveat to that in that you will never 100% be enjoying everything. And that's
No,
because the
of
way
course.
life is set up,
No, no, no.
it's that you
Yeah,
need
sure.
contrast to understand things. So, in
100%.
order for you to really enjoy something, you need to not enjoy something as well. And then when the thing happens, like honestly, like take any sense you have, smell, touch, taste, anything, right? The only way you understand something is because you've experienced the opposite. The only way you understand what sweet is because you've experienced sour and you pulled your face, or bitter, or something to that effect, right? The only way you know what loud is because you've experienced quiet. It's contrasts. We live in contrasts. So the only way to
100%.
experience happiness is to know what difficulty or sadness or any of those things are.
No, 100%. I agree with you. But what I was getting to was not that you won't experience contrast, and not that you don't need contrast. It's you have it already, right? You just need to learn how to gear your time so that you can squeeze every
100%.
juice out of the positive things, right? And
Yeah.
not ignore the negative things, but learn how to work with them so that you gear your time well enough so that the things that you want to do and get to do all the things that you want to do are the pinnacle of each day, each year, each month, whatever it is.
Yeah, agreed. Sorry.
So both of you have provided, I guess, answers on what you do with your time. So I would like to ask then, are you both actually working toward that? Like, if we regard our time as precious and our most valuable commodity, as I mentioned at the beginning, why are we not working toward directing our lives toward that which we want? What's holding us back?
I would like to think that I am.
Well, that's a
Sorry.
good answer. No, it's a good answer.
Yeah. I would like to think that I am, but I don't know if it's true. I'll only know in time. Intended.
I know. Look at this guy. I know for sure I'm not doing everything possible, but I know I'm gonna get to it, and it's also a thing of energies. I need to develop the energy to do these things. Sometimes it's like a rolling stone. I need to gather momentum, like you were saying earlier, and when you have that momentum, then everything works in your favor. And I think that's where I am at this point. But I mean, everybody has those pitfalls in life, the growth periods in life, and currently I feel like I'm a bit of a pitfall because I'm not developing as much all the time as I'd wanted to. But you know, it's one of those things.
I'd also say I'm not doing everything I could be doing, but I would say I'm doing enough, and the enough scales to a lot at different energy levels.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever hit everything, but I do enough of things, and then I do a lot of things.
It's quite hard to hit everything.
Between how energetic I am at various points, yeah.
I think there's a quote that I came across the other day that speaks to building the life you want with the time you have, and it says if you really want to live a transformed life, you have to live an intentional life. Most people don't lead their lives; they accept their
Love
life.
that.
You are living a life filled with things that don't deserve your time and energy. So by them,
Yeah, but most people are not leaders. Most people are followers.
yes, agreed. It's like,
So they follow what life does to them instead of leading life.
I mean, that leads to what I asked earlier about people living autonomously, right? Going with the flow.
100%.
And going with what society has kind of directed for them and what the world has directed for them in terms of where they are, their jobs and their lives, their family life and things like that. But I mean, it says you have to live an intentional life, which means you intend for something to happen in your life. You intend to build your life the way you want to. And we can't be accepting. We can't be accepting of our current status quo if we want to live a transformed life. We have to take charge of it, every second of it, to live that transformed life. And one of the ways we do that is by taking control of our time.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I think one of the last part of this is dealing with. There's a lot of quotes on time that I kind of saw on the interwebs earlier this week as well. And I know this is a bit different to what we've been discussing all along this podcast, but I just want to go through these. There's a saying about believe in the timing of your life. What's your comment on that one?
Oh Lord. Oh, I love that. I love that one. Jeez. Wow. There have been so many times. Sorry, Gush, I'm jumping in here, man. Yeah. There have been so many times where I wanted something to happen so badly, and it just didn't. And then years later, I look back at that moment and be like, "Good Lord, I'm so grateful that it didn't happen."
Yeah.
It's uncanny, but it talks back to the thing Guj said earlier about being aware of things. And when you're aware of what your life has unfolded like, or how your life has unfolded, then the timing is exquisite. Whether you had anything to do with it or not, it is just, it is sublime how it unfolds.
Yeah. I agree. Really.
It's the best story you'll ever read, honestly.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you like, it couldn't have happened any other way. And and you only ever get something when you're ready to receive it.
Yeah. Like that's so true. Like you have to develop into the person that's ready for it before it comes.
Correct. Yes.
I think that for me was one of the underlying tones of my life.
Honestly, people, if you look back at your life and you really examine things, there are some blinding plot twists that you would pay really good money to see on screen. But you are the main character of this plot twist. It's incredible.
The second one is it's not about having time, it's about making time.
Yeah.
I don't think you can make time. You don't have that kind of power. You can free up time. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's what it alludes to. It doesn't allude.
I know what
that
they mean,
yeah.
but I really, one of the things about me as a person is I get stuck on the words and terminology, right?
Yeah.
You guys know this,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You've been living with it for a long time now. You've had to deal with me for years, but just the idea of making time. If we could do that, if you could genuinely make time, you'd be the richest person in the world. But it is, and maybe the problem with the mismanagement of time is that people think they have to make time, and it's an impossibility. It's about freeing time and managing it. That's really where your power is.
We were discussing it just now, Dean. The same exact thing. And we were saying we need to catch up, right? And,
that's true.
Because if you didn't know, but there's some stitching that Cole's going to have to do because there was a bit of internet breakage. But while he was away, we were discussing catch-ups and things. And that essentially, we were saying, I was like, why don't we just do a Friday or something, instead of picking all day? And then Dean also made the point of, if we had to pick a dinner, we'd be closing the restaurant and letting the owner give us the keys so that we could lock up before we left. So it's one of those things where, yes, you have to make time, but you also have to choose time. I think the word is
I like
not
that.
make time, but choose time. You have to choose what's more important for you at the time and go for that thing rather than make time. Because if you're making time, you're sacrificing something else. Because if you're choosing, yes, you're sacrificing something else as well, but you're knowingly picking something better for yourself.
Yeah, the second you start consciously making choices, you are now moving into the realm of strategic thinking. And if you live your life with strategy, you'll achieve so much more.
I mean, based on that, then there's another one, the third one. There's never the right time. I mean,
That's true.
In the
There
context,
is never the right time.
in the context of
There's
doing
always
something.
some shit going wrong.
Yeah.
Always. Without fail. Something is always on fire. But if you
Yeah, so
put
the
your
next-
life on hold to deal with things, then you never do things.
Yeah.
This one also speaks to the delayed planning or the delayed actions from the plans. So there's never really any right time to enact on those plans, but the best
Yeah.
time is now even. So you have to go all in.
That's the one thing that I've been struggling with recently. It's like the best time is now, and sometimes I just procrastinate, and I'm like, but the best time could also be tomorrow, or next week.
Tomorrow's a good time too.
Yeah, but you're right. The best time is always now.
I think the last one that I want to comment on is timing is everything.
Yeah.
Was that
Wait,
the,
what was
was that the comment?
No, I'm thinking
No,
about how
sorry.
to phrase what I want to say. There's a thought
No, wait, what
forming
was
in my
it?
head, and it's
Timing is everything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like they say with comedy, what's the most important thing about comedy?
Timing.
Timing.
Yep.
And like they say, timing is everything. But also, I don't know. I've always, after the last couple of years of my life, I've also realized that time will do what time wants to do. When you're ready for something, it'll come to you.
yeah. So my reaction to that statement of time is everything is that perception is everything.
Yeah.
Because you only appreciate timing when you have perception. And when you are able to perceive what you're ready for, you're able to then understand why you did or didn't receive something at a particular moment.
I mean, there's one of those sayings that I remember as well. The longer you entertain that which is not for you, the longer it is that you delay which is meant for you.
I think that is a beautiful statement. I like that very much.
Yeah. And so it speaks to what you both have mentioned as well. Like if you're not ready for something, you won't receive it, even though you really want it. Like Dean, you mentioned you really wanted something, but at the end of the day, after a fair amount of time and reflection, you're glad that it didn't come to you. But unless you free up that space in your mind and that space to say that this is not for me, you won't be ready to receive the next thing.
Which is not an easy
Totally
thing to do.
Say again?
Because it's not an easy thing to do. Because sometimes you set yourself on something and you go after it, and you only
Very
realize
true.
later that it's not really what you needed or wanted, or your perception, like Dean says, changes. Your ideas change and your mind changes, and you have to kind of learn how to deal with that.
Yep. I mean, through the pain, time heals all.
Oh, does it though?
What do you mean, does it though? It does. I mean, it doesn't heal. You just get better at dealing with things.
There we go.
That's the correct way of saying that one.
Through time, we grow
Yes.
enough to deal with the damage.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. We learn every day.
Time is ultimately a permission slip. It allows us to create projects in a linear fashion.
That is
Unless
one way
you-
I've never heard it put in my life.
Pardon?
I've never heard it put like that in my life.
I didn't hear that again. Sorry.
I've never heard it put like that in my life. I've never heard of time as a permission slip.
I don't think I've ever said it before. It's just like, that sounds like something fun to say. I don't know how true it is. It could be complete, talking out of my ass, but it
Coming up
felt
with
felt like
puzzles
it made
here.
sense. I know. It's almost as if the traffic I sat on the way home was useful. Another waste of time. But it wasn't wasted because I thought of stuff.
Well, that's all I had for this evening. Is there any last bit of comments that you'd like to make based on time itself, uses of it, philosophical, philosophical quotes or advices that you'd like to give?
No, I don't want to waste anyone else's time.
Oh, well played, sir. Well played.
That was too easy.
And on that note,
And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Good night, everyone. Yeah, that's some Top Gear. Yeah. Oh, classic. Well, if there's anything else, thank you once again, listeners, for tuning in. We value your time. We value your listenership. We value you. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a wonderful week ahead. From us, the Three Wise Potatoes, have a great evening. Goodbye.
bye.